What if the foods you trust most are nothing more than illusions, engineered products that look edible but hide industrial secrets? Behind every sizzling strip of bacon, every golden fry, every glossy spoonful of yogurt lies a process so twisted it would make you rethink every bite. The United States Food and Drug Administration allows up to 30 fly eggs per 100 grams of tomato sauce. McDonald's hamburgers have been shown to stay intact for more than 14 years without rotting. Even your healthy yogurt is loaded with live bacteria and gelatin from animal bones. These aren't just kitchen nightmares. They're corporate betrayals sold to millions of families, especially older Americans trying to stretch every dollar of Social Security checks. So ask yourself, if mold, bacteria, and even time itself refuse to touch these foods, what are they really doing inside your body? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And don't worry, each section will not only expose the shocking truth, but also point you towards safe alternatives you can actually trust. Number 1. Fries. What if the fries you've been dipping in ketchup for decades are not really food at all, but more like a chemistry project disguised as comfort? McDonald's has managed to turn a humble potato, a symbol of simplicity on every American table, into something so processed that even time itself seems too afraid to touch it. Their fries aren't just potatoes fried in oil. They are built from a staggering 19 ingredients, a list that reads less like a recipe and more like the back of a pesticide label. Sure, potatoes, oils, and salt are there, but then you tumble headfirst into a labyrinth of citric acid, dextrose, sodium acid pyrophosphate, and TBHQ. These aren't seasonings, they're red flags waving right in your face. And here's the brutal truth. If your tongue struggles to pronounce it, maybe your stomach struggles even harder to digest it. The cruel joke? Millions keep eating them because they're sold as golden perfection. Golden, yes, but only the way spray-painted plastic looks golden under the right light. The betrayal doesn't stop at the lab-coated ingredient list. McDonald's slipped in a secret so bold it borders on mockery. Their fries were pre-cooked in beef tallow, dressed up under the sly disguise of natural beef flavor. Think about it. Millions of vegetarians and Hindus trusting the brand, biting into what they thought was a safe side dish, only to discover they'd been swallowing beef fat all along. The outrage wasn't just cultural, it was moral. The company was dragged into lawsuits and forced to pay millions to communities who had been deceived. Imagine working 2 jobs, scraping pennies together to buy a meal you thought respected your beliefs, only to learn that the fries carried a hidden betrayal cooked into every bite. It's like being told your diet soda secretly had sugar. Only the stakes here are tied to faith, ethics, and the right to choose what goes into your body. And just when you think it can't get more grotesque, it does. These fries don't decompose the way food is supposed to. Seal them in a jar, and 4 years later, they still stare back at you, eerily intact, like they've been embalmed for display in some twisted museum of fast food horrors. At least when you leave fries from KFC or a backyard diner on the counter, they shrivel, mold, and rot, reminding you that they were once alive, once natural. McDonald's fries, though, remain stiff and shiny, like mannequins in a mall window. Reports have even shown that some of their items, fries included, can sit untouched for over 14 years without breaking down. 14 years. That's longer than the lifespan of many family cars. If the bacteria in your fridge don't want to eat it, why should you? This isn't just an odd trivia fact. It's a red alarm for every American living on a tight budget, trying to stretch every dollar at the grocery store. Older folks on Social Security checks, veterans, retirees. They line up at the counter thinking they're buying something safe, familiar, and cheap. But what they're really getting is a food-like object engineered for immortality, stuffed with chemicals that chip away at health over time. The fries may be sold as innocent sides, but they are ticking time bombs wrapped in paper sleeves, sneering at the very people who trust them most. The next time you see those golden arches glowing in the distance, ask yourself, is that light welcoming you or luring you toward a corporate trap built on deception, chemicals, and a potato that forgot how to die? Number 2. Hot dogs. What happens when America's so-called all-American snack is unmasked? The hot dog, that smiling staple of baseball games and backyard grills, becomes less of a treat and more of a horror film in a bun. For decades, companies have polished the myth of the hot dog as simple, affordable comfort food, when in truth it's born from a process that feels more like industrial waste disposal than cooking. At the beginning is the harshest reality. The animal's life is cut short, and the parts no one else wants are scraped up for the grinder. After the prime cuts of pork and beef are whisked away to more respectable shelves, what's left, fat, tendons, and scraps, is tossed into industrial machines like garbage heading for a landfill. Then, in a stomach-turning twist, chicken trimmings are shoveled in, adding yet another layer of cast-offs to the recipe. This unholy mix passes through grated metal plates, becoming less animal and more sludge. What emerges is not meat as your grandparents knew it, but a pinkish goo that looks like it belongs in a chemical plant, not your kitchen table. That goo doesn't get left alone. It's whipped and liquefied until it flows like a milkshake of flesh, a puree so revolting that many who witness it swear never to look at a sausage the same way again. Into this slurry go food starch, salt, brown mustard, flavorings, and water, all blended until the appearance is uniform, glossy, and disturbingly artificial. Think of it as corporate camouflage. If it looks smooth, maybe you won't think about the nightmares that went into it. And then comes the cruelest trick: casings. That liquefied meat is forced into tubes, giving it the illusion of shape, dignity, and tradition. It's then smoked to add that familiar hot dog taste, though what really flavors it is secrecy. Behind every bite is a graveyard of discarded animal parts stitched together by machines. Yet companies parade it proudly, waving American flags at ballparks as if patriotism could erase the stench of what really goes inside. For millions of older Americans, the hot dog has been a cheap option, a staple to stretch Social Security checks just a little further. But here's the question no one dares to ask out loud. If you knew exactly how it was made, would you still feed it to your grandchildren at the 4th of July cookout? Beneath the smoke and nostalgia lies a darker truth. This food is less about nourishment and more about repackaging the unwanted, disguising corporate efficiency as family tradition. The irony is bitter. A pig once considered a beautiful animal is reduced to liquefied sludge and sold for profit, while consumers are left holding the bun, smiling through a mouthful of processed betrayal. The next time you see a hot dog sizzling on the grill, look closer. Are you really smelling food or just the illusion of it? Number 3. Tomato sauce. That comforting splash of red draped over pasta, pizza, or lasagna might look like love served on a plate, but hidden beneath its glossy surface is something far darker and far more alive. The next time you twirl spaghetti drenched in tomato sauce, ask yourself this: are you really eating vegetables, or are you unknowingly sharing your dinner with tiny intruders that the government says are perfectly acceptable? The United States Food and Drug Administration has long permitted a certain level of contamination in processed foods, but what it allows in tomato-based products would make any stomach churn. Buried in that jar of sauce could be as many as 30 fly eggs per 100 grams, and yes, the law says that's fine. If that doesn't make you wince, here's a bonus. You might also be spooning up at least one squirming maggot for every 100 grams. Imagine calling that family dinner, and it doesn't stop at just spaghetti sauce. The very same standards apply across the board. Canned tomatoes, tomato puree, tomato juice, pizza sauce, and nearly every other red condiment lined up on grocery shelves. In some cases, regulators even tolerate up to 2 maggots per 100 milligrams. Stop for a second. 2 maggots in what amounts to less than a mouthful. That's not an accident. It's an official policy. Somewhere between the vine and your fork, insects become government-approved seasoning. The FDA waves it off with a shrug, chalking it up to the realities of mass farming and food storage. But for millions of unsuspecting consumers, especially older Americans who've grown up believing "made in the USA" meant safe, clean, and wholesome, this revelation is like finding out your church choir's holy water was topped up from a public swimming pool. Of course, industry defenders will tell you that these insect fragments are harmless, even nutritious. After all, maggots are technically protein. But let's not kid ourselves. When you order marinara at an Italian restaurant or crack open a can of fresh tomato soup at home, you aren't imagining tiny larvae dissolving on your tongue. Consumers are sold the fantasy of garden-picked tomatoes simmered into a sauce of purity and tradition, yet what they're getting is a slurry with a legally sanctioned infestation. It's not farm to table, it's more like farm to fly to factory to you. And the insult cuts even deeper for vegans. Many turn to tomato-based dishes as a meatless safe haven, only to learn their plates may still crawl with the remnants of living things. For retirees, fixed-income households, and working-class families who rely on pasta night as an affordable staple, this isn't just a gross-out fact. It's a betrayal. You stretch your dollar hoping for nutrition and comfort, only to discover your pantry might as well be a bug collection kit approved by federal bureaucracy. And while corporations polish their advertising with images of rustic Italian kitchens and sun-drenched tomato fields, what's actually being served is a jar that blurs the line between food and entomology. The cruel punchline? Most people will never even see the eggs or maggots. They blend seamlessly into the sauce, camouflaged by the very color that's supposed to represent health and vitality. The next time you lift that forkful of pasta dripping in red, pause and think. Are you tasting tradition, or are you swallowing the silence of a system that decided a few dozen fly eggs were an acceptable part of your meal? Number 4. Hamburgers. For years, the hamburger has been marketed as America's pride, a symbol of convenience, flavor, and affordability. But what if I told you the burger on your tray at McDonald's might be closer to a wax sculpture than real food? Behind the sizzle of the grill and the illusion of freshness lies a process so chillingly artificial that the end product seems to defy nature itself. It begins in the slaughterhouse, where cuts of beef deemed suitable are inspected and fed through industrial grinders. The mixture is pressed into neat patties, frozen solid in vast freezers, and packed like identical coins of flesh waiting to be shipped out by the millions. Some patties are pulled for testing, the company claiming this ensures safety while carefully adding one more marketing reassurance: we don't use pink slime. That phrase alone, pink slime, was enough to spark fear across the nation years ago, and McDonald's leapt to distance itself. Yet for all the reassurances, a far more sinister secret was hiding in plain sight. A scientist once stuffed a McDonald's hamburger into the pocket of his coat and left it there, not for a week, not for a month, but for over 14 years. When he retrieved it, the burger looked eerily intact, like a plastic prop in a child's play kitchen. No mold, no rot, no collapse of the bun. It hadn't grown old, it had simply frozen in time, embalmed by its own unnatural composition. Other researchers followed up with controlled experiments, expecting small burgers to dry quickly and ward off bacteria because of their size. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. No moisture meant no mold, no bacteria, no decomposition. On the surface, that might sound like preservation. In reality, it's a red flag. Real food is supposed to break down, to feed life, even if that life is mold. If mold and bacteria want nothing to do with your meal, why should your body? The implications are more disturbing than a simple party trick with old food. For seniors living on fixed incomes, retirees treating themselves to a cheap indulgence, or working-class Americans grabbing a quick bite on the go, these burgers become more than a meal, they become a slow gamble with their health. Day after day, people take comfort in a product designed not for nourishment but for shelf life, engineered to resist the very forces of nature that keep food honest. The bun's resilience, the patty's refusal to decay, the uniformity of taste across billions of servings. This is not food, this is edible merchandise. And corporations dare to market it as family-friendly, parading smiling clowns and dollar menus, while slipping chemical-laced patties onto the plates of the very communities struggling hardest to stay afloat. So the next time you unwrap that neatly folded paper around a McDonald's hamburger, ask yourself, are you biting into dinner, or are you biting into a time capsule? What looks like comfort food may actually be a relic of corporate science, carefully crafted not to feed your body, but to preserve their profit. And the haunting question remains, if a burger can survive over a decade stuffed in a coat pocket, untouched by decay, what exactly is it doing inside you? Number 5. Yogurt. For years, yogurt has been paraded around as the saint of the grocery store aisle, the shining white promise of health, digestion, and living well. But peel back the glossy ads of fruit-topped parfaits, and you'll find a reality that feels less like nourishment and more like a stomach-churning dare. The truth? Yogurt is deliberately loaded with bacteria. Not the stray bacteria you're warned to scrub from your kitchen counters, but strains carefully, poured into vats of milk, multiplied, and served to you in brightly colored cups. Centuries of tradition cloak the process with an aura of safety, but modern machines have turned it into industrial-scale fermentation, where microbes are the main ingredient. That tangy taste marketers call refreshing is not nature's gift. It's the direct result of organisms breaking down sugars, digesting lactose, and excreting chemicals that you then swallow by the spoonful. You aren't just eating yogurt, you're sharing your dessert with an army of microscopic squatters. The journey begins with milk split into skim and cream, often thickened with milk powder or gelatin. And here's a kicker that vegetarians might gag over. Gelatin doesn't sprout from plants. It's harvested from animal bones, cartilage, and connective tissue. So much for your meat-free snack. Next, the thickened milk is pasteurized, killing harmful bacteria but creating a sterile playground for the so-called good ones. Into that warm bath go live bacterial cultures, carefully chosen not for their beauty but for their efficiency at turning fresh milk into a product that resists spoilage and satisfies corporate shelf life demands. In just 3 or 4 hours of fermentation, those organisms metabolize lactose, spewing out acids and compounds that give yogurt its familiar tang and creamy texture. Consumers, spoon in hand, call it healthy. The bacteria call it home. Companies love to dress this up with promises of probiotics, gut health, and longevity. They talk about cultures like they're old friends at a neighborhood barbecue, when in reality you're swallowing colonies of microorganisms that thrive in your digestive tract, long after the cup is empty. Some strains survive the acidic battlefield of your stomach and set up shop inside your intestines, changing your inner ecosystem in ways science still struggles to fully explain. That isn't just breakfast. It's a corporate experiment using your body as the incubator. And while your yogurt cup might flaunt pictures of strawberries, blueberries, or honey, the truth hiding under the lid is far less appetizing. Gelatin from carcasses, bacteria multiplying like a microscopic mob, and additives that keep the product thick and visually appealing long after the milk should have spoiled. For older Americans stretching Social Security checks, yogurt often appears to be the affordable, healthy option, a simple indulgence that feels smarter than soda or chips. But here lies the bitter irony. What looks like a safe, wholesome food is a biological construction project built on the backs of hidden animal products and live cultures. It's not the quaint kitchen recipe passed down by grandmothers. It's an industry turning bacteria into profit while spoon-feeding the illusion of health to the very communities most vulnerable to marketing lies. The next time you peel back that foil lid and see the glossy, white surface staring up at you, ask yourself, is this really food, or are you eating a living laboratory, one spoonful at a time? Number 6. Bacon. Bacon has been worshipped in America like a holy relic, draped over burgers, wrapped around steaks, even turned into ice cream. Everything's better with bacon, they say, but what if everything is actually worse because of it? Strip away the crispy aroma and the sizzling sound in the pan, and what you're left with is a corporate trick dressed up as tradition. Once upon a time, bacon was made simply. Pork belly rubbed with salt and spices, left to cure for days until the flavors sank deep. It was rustic, honest, something you could almost imagine hanging in a smokehouse. But mass production bulldozed that charm, replacing it with injections of salty brine pumped straight into the meat. And this isn't just salt water, it's a cocktail laced with chemicals like ascorbic acid, potassium nitrate, and sodium nitrate. These aren't sprinkled in for your health. They're added for one reason, to make the bacon heavier, juicier on the scale, and pricier at checkout. You're not just buying bacon, you're paying premium price for water weight. It's as if the supermarket is selling you balloons disguised as pork. But here's where it gets nastier. Those nitrates and nitrites, long used to preserve color and prevent bacterial growth, have been linked to severe health risks. Studies have flagged them as potential contributors to cancer, heart problems, and metabolic diseases. Yet corporations insist on pumping them into your breakfast, waving the banner of food safety while their real aim is shelf stability and profit. Think about it. Your morning indulgence may be less about flavor and more about chemical engineering. Then comes the so-called safety net. After being cooked and cooled for a couple of days, the meat is run through metal detectors to ensure shards from factory hangers haven't slipped in. And if they're checking for metal contamination, it's because it has happened before. Imagine waking up to bacon and eggs only to bite down on a sliver of steel. Suddenly that orange sitting on the counter doesn't look so bad anymore. For retirees, working-class families, and older Americans clinging to tradition, bacon has been sold as an affordable luxury, a little slice of joy on the plate. But in reality, it's a carefully polished scam. Every bite carries not only unnecessary water weight, but also the invisible baggage of chemicals that chip away at your health over time. The corporations don't care if your arteries clog, if your blood pressure spikes, or if your medical bills grow. They care that the bacon looks plump in its vacuum-sealed pack, and that you keep coming back for more. The cruel irony? The very food once celebrated as comfort has been re-engineered into a slow-moving threat, sneering at the people who trusted it most. So the next time you hear that familiar crackle in the frying pan, ask yourself, are you hearing breakfast, or are you listening to the sound of your health being auctioned off to the highest bidder? Behind every smoky strip is a tale of water, chemicals, and corporate greed. And maybe, just maybe, the fruit bowl on your table suddenly feels like the safer bet. Number 7. Breakfast sandwiches. The morning rush has been sold to us as simple. Skip the frying pan, skip the dishes, grab a hot sandwich from your favorite fast food joint and let them do the work. It feels convenient, even indulgent, better than a sad bowl of cereal, right? But peel back the layers of that egg and cheese breakfast sandwich and you'll discover something far darker than a quick bite. What you're really unwrapping is not just food, it's a chemistry set pressed between bread. The very ingredients that make these sandwiches warm, glossy, and shelf-stable are the same ones you'd never knowingly put in your mouth if you knew their second life outside the kitchen. And the worst offender? Subway's breakfast sandwiches, a menu item that promises energy for the day but delivers an industrial cocktail that belongs in factories, not in stomachs. Take propylene glycol, for example. In the sandwich, it plays the role of a solvent for food colors and flavorings. But outside of that golden wrapper, it's better known as an ingredient in antifreeze, deodorant sticks, and lubricants for air conditioning compressors. Imagine sipping on your coffee while unknowingly chewing on the same substance keeping your car from freezing. Then there's glycerin, another harmless additive sprinkled into the recipe. In theory, it helps keep textures soft and moist. In practice, you'll find it in soaps, moisturizers, and shaving creams. That means your breakfast sandwich is wearing the same chemical suit as the lotion sitting in your bathroom. And we're just getting started. Tertiary butyl hydroquinone, mercifully shortened to TBHQ, is added to keep oils from spoiling. Sounds innocent until you realize the same compound is also used in perfumes, lacquers, and varnishes. Every bite of that fluffy bun might as well come with the whiff of a hardware store. Dimethylpolysiloxane makes its entrance next, a substance better known for living in silly putty and lubricants than in egg patties. And if you thought concrete belonged on roads and rooftops, not in your food, think again. Calcium silicate, a sealant used to line streets and buildings, is another hidden guest sandwiched into your morning treat. The cruel irony is that fast food corporations push these breakfast items as the most important meal of the day, dressing them up as wholesome energy for busy workers, retirees, and anyone short on time. But the truth is uglier. You're paying for chemicals that belong in industrial aisles, not grocery aisles. No wonder so many people walk away from breakfast feeling heavy, sluggish, and vaguely unwell. It isn't the eggs, cheese, or bread weighing them down. It's the burden of synthetic additives dragging their health under. For older Americans living on fixed incomes, this feels like the ultimate betrayal. You buy cheap, thinking you're saving time and money, only to discover you're swallowing a corporate shortcut that trades convenience for your well-being. So next time you unwrap that steaming breakfast sandwich on your commute, ask yourself, is this really a meal, or is it just a chemical handshake disguised as food? The truth may leave you hungrier than ever, for honesty, for safety, and for something that doesn't taste like asphalt in disguise. Number 8. Chewing gum. Parents used to scare us with the old myth, don't swallow gum, or it will sit in your stomach for 7 years. As kids, we pictured a sticky pink wad clinging to our insides like a piece of chewed-up wallpaper paste. The truth is a little less dramatic, but far more unsettling. Gum doesn't stay for 7 years, but it also isn't food. Within a few days, it passes through your system. But here's the real kicker. What you've been chewing all these years isn't something that belongs in your mouth at all. The chewy base that gives gum its famous bounce used to come from natural tree resin, but in today's world of cost-cutting mass production, it has been replaced with synthetic compounds. Translation? You're chewing on a mixture of plastics and rubbers, softened and flavored just enough to trick your brain into thinking it's candy. If the idea of chewing a balloon or gnawing on a rubber band makes your stomach turn, you've just discovered the true identity of your favorite stick of gum. The process itself feels like something out of a plastics factory, not a candy shop. The gum base, essentially engineered rubber, is poured into giant mixers. where colors, artificial flavors, and industrial-grade sweeteners are added. These sweeteners and flavorings are often the only remotely edible components of the recipe, and they're designed to dissolve quickly, creating that initial rush of mint or fruit flavor. But after a couple of minutes, what's left in your mouth isn't candy, it's flavorless rubber, endlessly chewable but nutritionally void. The sensation of sweetness fades fast, leaving behind nothing but synthetic chew mass. It's like gnawing on a plastic toy dipped in sugar water, except it's marketed as a fun childhood treat. And that's where the betrayal deepens. Companies package gum as a harmless indulgence, complete with glossy advertising that shows kids blowing bubbles, teens flirting with a wink and a pop, and adults freshening their breath before meetings. What they don't show is the reality. Consumers are shelling out money for flavored rubber pellets that serve no nutritional purpose and may even contain questionable additives. Many gum bases contain petrochemical derivatives. Yes, substances that trace back to the same industry producing fuels and plastics. The irony is rich. People spit gum onto sidewalks like trash, yet willingly put the same material in their mouths for hours every day. For older Americans, gum often carries a nostalgic tug. Memories of nickel gum packs at corner stores, of Elvis-era bubble-blowing contests, of kids sticking wads under school desks. But nostalgia doesn't change the chemistry. What used to be resin from a tree has now been swapped for rubber and plastic churned out in industrial vats. When retirees and working-class families spend precious dollars on gum, they aren't buying a harmless treat. They're buying into a corporate illusion that something non-food can be enjoyed like food. And in that sense, the myth parents told us wasn't entirely wrong. Gum may not stick in your stomach for 7 years, but it leaves a longer mark on your health and trust than anyone wants to admit. The next time you pop a piece into your mouth, ask yourself, are you really enjoying candy, or are you just chewing on corporate rubber dressed up with a hint of sugar? Unmasking hidden truths in everyday foods, we reveal betrayals. Subscribe now and protect your health with every shocking discovery.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our daily content. Now feel free to check out some of our newest and best videos currently showing on the screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.